Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace, everyone. This is Huzaifa Shahbaz, National Research Coordinator at CAIR National. Welcome you to today's episode of CAIR on Air. Thanks so much for joining us. We are happy to welcome all of our viewers, including those from American Muslim 360 and those of you watching from Facebook and YouTube. Today's topic is about CAIR's school resource document. 2 weeks ago, CAIR issued a school resource document with tips and strategies to talk about 9/11 in the classroom. In this program, I'll discuss what this document entails, why is it important, and the best practices to teach about 9/11 for teachers and educators. And so I'll have the producer now put the report and the document on screen so we can go over it together. So what does this document entail? CAIR designed this school resource document to give teachers additional tools they can use to discuss the 9/11 attacks using vetted and reliable sources. The resource document includes a list of general lesson plans about 9/11 created by educators, as well as documentaries, news reports, and articles that cover both the attacks and their impact on people across America, including American Muslims. The document also includes recommended tips that teachers can use to avoid incidents of bigotry in a classroom during the discussion of 9/11. And so what is the inspiration behind this document and why is it so important? So every year, CAIR offices normally receive complaints from students and families about anti-Muslim bullying and Islamophobic rhetoric in classrooms tied to the anniversaries of September 11, 2001. And so with that said, we wanted to address how teachers and administrators can address the attack in a way that does not alienate Muslim students in the classroom. In CAIR surveys, large numbers of Muslim students reported being mocked, verbally harassed, or physically abused because of their faith or ethnicity. Now, let's be clear. Teaching about the September 11 attacks and their impact on our nation is critically important, but it is just as important to educate students in an accurate way using reliable sources that do not contain anti-Arab or anti-Muslim content. And so, just for an example, so if we look at some statistics, right? CAIR National's 2021 Civil Rights Report, Resilience in the Face of Hate, documented various school-related complaints ranging from bullying, anti-Muslim school curriculum, and holiday denials in 2020. Bullying accounted for 44% of all school-related complaints. CAIR California's bullying report documented 40% of Muslim students in California experiencing bullying and discrimination. And so, what are the sorts of tips and strategies can educators use in the classroom to talk about 9/11 in a way where Muslim students do not feel alienated in any sort of way? So let's go and talk about the tips for teaching lesson plans on September 11, 2001. So as you can see on the screen, there are about 9 tips. And we're going to go through each one of them together. So the first one, to educate students about 9/11 attacks in an accurate, clear, and effective manner, we recommend the following best practices. Number 1, alert students a few days in advance of the 9/11 lesson plan so that families have time to prepare their children for the discussion. Many Muslim parents would like to know in advance that this curriculum is going to be taught, how they can talk about the days of the events with their children in a way that they're ready to hear about this in schools. And so, it doesn't come as a shock, or, if they do feel, if a teacher, has been Islamophobic, what are some of the steps they can take within their classroom? Number 2, only use external instruction materials such as photographs, documentaries from vetted, reliable mainstream sources such as museums and major media outlets. It's crucial to be using reliable sources when discussing about 9/11 in the classroom. There's a lot of information out there where the information is directly, when talking about the incident, characterizes Muslims and Islam and associating them with terrorism, associating the religion with terrorism. And so it's really important to have a reliable source that can talk about it in a way that that is vetted and reliable, and talk in a way that is does not make any students feel alienated in any way in the classroom. And so number 3, vet all materials, including internal materials such as textbooks, to ensure that they do not include any inaccurate information or inflammatory content. Number 4, immediately respond to any incidents of bullying or harassment that occur in the classroom during the lesson plan. So for many students, they experience bullying. Muslim students in particular not only experience bullying from peer to peer, but they also experience bullying from teacher to student and administrator to student. So it's really important to, if you experience any sort of Islamophobic experience in the classroom, and you're directly targeted for your faith, it is crucial you go and report that to your local school counselor or whoever may be in charge that can take care of this issue and can write up a report. Number 5, refrain from asking students to engage in educational activities that stimulate the roles of perpetrators, targets, or bystanders. Number 6, do not single out and prompt Muslim students or students perceived to be Muslim to comment on attacks, because what that does is that it makes them guilty by association just because they identify as Muslims, or somehow put any sort of collective responsibility on them just because they're Muslim. And so do not make some sort of lesson plan that directly targets and singles out Muslim students just because they are Muslim. Number 7, avoid using language that validates the claims of the 9/11 attackers by associating their acts of mass murder with Islam and Muslims. For example, avoid using inaccurate and inflammatory terms such as Islamic terrorists, jihadists, or radical Islamic terrorists. We wouldn't want that with any other faith. We wouldn't want, saying Christian we don't hear Christian terrorists, for example, in classroom, right? And so it's a double standard, and we wouldn't want that with any other faith, right? And so there's nothing Islamic about terrorism, right? There's nothing radical about Islam, and so it's really important to stay away from these terms, because what it does, it brings up a lot of the old Orientalist tropes about Islam and Muslims and associates it with terrorism. Number 8, include information about the Muslim responses to the 9/11 attacks, such as the widespread condemnations of the attacks by American Muslim leaders, international expressions of solidarity with America from Muslim majority nations, the American Muslim leaders who joined President Bush at Washington, D.C.'s Old Mosque to condemn the attacks, and boxer Muhammad Ali participating in a nationally televised fundraiser for families of 9/11 victims alongside actor Will Smith. Number 9, when discussing the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, the Iraq War, and Guantanamo Bay also include the discussion of bigotry and hate crimes that impacted Sikh Americans, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, and other minorities in the days, months, and years after the attack. And so, one thing to keep in mind is that when 9/11 had happened, the first hate crime that happened was against a Sikh American, and his name was Balbir Sodhi. He was murdered. He was murdered by gunshot in Mesa, Arizona, I believe, just because the shooter had mistaken him for a Muslim. And so we started to understand afterwards that Islamophobia is such an intersectional issue. It doesn't only affect Muslims, but it affects people who are perceived to be Muslim. So that includes Sikh Americans as an example, right? And so it's really important, again, to pay attention to these tips. They make a huge difference in the classroom. And we want to make sure that CAIR does not have to, we don't want to see, for example, a rise in complaints when it comes to the anniversary of 9/11. We want to make sure that teachers are equipped with the necessary tools to talk about this in a way that doesn't alienate any Muslim students, right? And so it's crucial to follow these tips. And one of the things that CAIR would like you to do is, in addition to not only implementing these lesson plans in your classroom, but also take initiative to send this document to other folks as well, including your local superintendent, any teachers you may be in contact with, and also any other folks who may work in the educational space. It's important for this document to it's important for this document to be popularized, making sure that people are familiar with the resources that are on here. And so if you go to the last 2-3 pages, you'll see that CAIR has compiled a list of educational resources about 9/11. And so we have 3 kinds of resources. One are general lesson plans. Number 2 are educational videos and documentaries. And last are educational articles, right? So please pay attention to any of the lesson plans that are out there that you can use the lesson plans directly in this document and implement them in your classroom. There are a lot of great documentaries here that you can show and YouTube videos that you can show in your classroom, as well as some educational materials, including CAIR's Bullying and Bias report addressing Islamophobia in the classrooms. And so please share this around with, again, your local superintendent, teachers you're in touch with, and any other people who are working in the educational space. So I'm going to ask the producer to actually put the link of this document in the chat so you all have access to this document and you can share it around. And so that pretty much sums up our program. It's a short program today. We wanted to just let you all know about the school resource document and how to make use of it. We have some very special events happening next week. So again, I'd like to thank you all for joining today's episode of CAIR on Air. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover, just email us at info@cair.com. Again, tune in next week for a special CAIR on Air series about the September 11th attacks and their effects on the American Muslim community, our nation, and the world. And remember to like and share this on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, Assalamu alaikum and take care.